When Chief Kubinski was in high school, the thought of being a fireman and a first responder hadn't crossed his mind. Like many of us, he believed that success would stem from obtaining a 4-year degree. However, after just his first year in college, he realized that the time was not quite right. His brother-in-law one night enlisted his help in hooking up hoses and training new cadets. And Chief Kubinski was hooked. He then enrolled in a 2-year degree program studying fire science and paramedics. He would then become a fireman, a tradition that would be born in his family as his daughter would also become a paramedic. Chief Kubinski's advice would be to don't follow the norm. Follow your gut, it won't lead you astray. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Kubinski.
Wow, nice job. And we only met 10 minutes ago. Well, thank you, Anthony, for those kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Well, I'd like to introduce myself just to give a little bit further into what Anthony shared with you. This is important to me. Ooh. It's tough watching that video and not getting emotional. So my name is Jim Kubinski. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I've been a firefighter paramedic for 27 years. It's important because that's who I am, a firefighter paramedic that I currently have the honor and privilege to serve as the chief of the Killeen Fire Department, and that's all it is, an honor and a privilege. I'm no different than any one of you out there. I wake up in the morning, I get dressed, I go to work. To my firefighter paramedics and my cadets in the room, I'm no different than you were 27 years ago. I just have different responsibility. And that's what's the difference, responsibility. But more important than that, I'm a husband. I'm a husband to my wife, Jen. I'm a father to my kids, Drew and Alexa. I'm a son to my mother, God rest her soul. I'm a brother, an uncle. I'm even a favorite son-in-law to Dan and Karen, who drove all the way from Michigan to be here today. And they drove, they didn't fly. So I thought about what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about never forget and what those words mean. I wanted to talk to you about the unsung heroes of 9/11. I wanted to talk about the numbers 343, 8, and 60. I wanted to talk about 2,753. But before I can do that, I had to think, because those numbers mean very little to many of you in the room. Anyone born between 2001 and today, stand up. Anyone born between 2001 and today? Take a look around the room. How can I ask you to remember something? How can I ask you to never forget something that you can't even remember because you weren't alive? Anyone between 1994 and 2001? Nope, stay standing. 1994 and 2001, stand up. How can I ask you to never forget something you probably don't remember, unless you're some idiot savant with a brain better than mine? So I ask you to pay attention today. Go ahead and be seated. Thank you. I realized it was unfair to discuss never forget. That's something so many in this room can't even remember. So let's go back to my youth. Let's talk about Memorial Day. I had to put myself in your place. Memorial Day, what was it to me? It was a parade. It was a day off from school. It was hot dogs, hamburgers. That's what Memorial Day was to me. It wasn't until 2001 that I truly understood what Memorial Day was. It was May 2001. I was a young rookie firefighter. And one of my mentors to this day, Lieutenant Jim Collins, comes into the room and says, "Hey, want to be part of this parade?" I'm like, heck yeah. I'm a firefighter. I'm proud to be a firefighter. I want to be in parade because that's what firefighters do. We sit in recliners, we go to parades, and we cook, right? I said, heck yeah. He says, "It's the Memorial Day parade. I'm a retired Air Force vet, and I took on the parade, and I'm in charge of it. So come on down." Well, he suckered me in, put me in charge of all the junior high bands. It's a 50,000 person attended parade with over 75 floats, every grade school and high school band, and he puts me in charge of junior high kids. It was just like being at the firehouse. It wasn't until that day that I understood what Memorial Day was. It was a day for me to remember something that I couldn't remember because I wasn't alive for World War II. I wasn't alive in World War I. I could barely remember the Vietnam War, and it's only because of things I saw on the news. And it was that day that I understood what it meant to never forget. Little did I know that only 6 months later, I would truly have to be the messenger of never forget. You see, I took time to talk to the vets who were at that parade, these vets that were riding in cars and marching, 80-year-old men and women marching a 1.5 mile parade route, not for recognition, but to remember and to make sure everybody sitting in that parade never forgot. And it wasn't until that time when I heard the story of a veteran who lost a buddy in battle that I understood what it means to never forget. So I have this message to you, our youth in the room, all of you who stood up. Put your phone down for an hour today. Tuck it away. Homework assignment number 2, turn on the TV. Yes, you can tell mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or uncle or aunt that the chief said I could turn on the TV today and find a documentary. Because every time I watch a documentary, every year for the last 21 years, I've learned something new, something different. And then I want you to ask your loved one, anybody who was around who can remember, what did they think of when they heard the news? And more importantly, how did they feel? That's how you can never forget. You see, because it's not about all those numbers I'm going to talk about in a little bit. It's about every single American, every single person who lived on this continent and was a resident of the United States that felt something that day. That is the secret on how to never forget. But what does never forget really mean? It means something different to everybody. But to me, I will share with you what never forget means. It means 343. 343 firefighters who woke up that morning, went to work, and didn't come home. The largest single loss of firefighters in any event in United States history. So you want to know what I was thinking? I was thinking when I sat down and watched that TV that morning, there's no way we're going to get out of this unscathed. We're going to battle, and somebody's not coming back. The number 8. 8 EMTs or paramedics who lost their life that day, trying to help people, trying to rescue people. The number 60. 60 police officers between the Port Authority and the New York Police Department who lost their lives that day. And the number 2,753, which are the total casualties from the towers that collapsed. But we also can't forget the attack on the Pentagon. So often that gets forgotten. That even before our soldiers deployed, even before our soldiers went to battle like our firefighters did that day, they had already been attacked and they had already suffered casualties. The passengers on each plane, and none of these people that I just mentioned are more important than the other. I don't care if it was the commissioner of the New York Fire Department or if it was a child in the Pentagon. No single loss of life is more important than the other. We were all equal that day, and in not a good way. Most importantly for me, though, it's 343. It's on the back of our trucks. If you ever see the new trucks that are driving down the street, you see a big banner underneath the bumper that says, "Keep back 343 feet." Because that is our way as the Killeen Fire Department to never forget the single most impactful day in the fire service. But this also means remembering our unsung heroes. Who are the unsung heroes? There were heroes that day that we've never heard about that I promise you'll learn about if you watch a good documentary. But some unsung heroes to me: Captain Chuck Worley, Naperville Fire Department, Ladder 7, who deployed within 24 hours notice, spent 1 month there working 12 hours on, 12 hours off, no days off, digging out, hoping to rescue somebody. Captain Chuck Worley suffered from cancer years later and had to have surgery. Still alive, still doing okay today, but he's my unsung hero. Firefighter paramedic Dave Walters, a man who I respect tremendously, was the leader of my honor guard that I was a member of up north, who will not go to a 9/11 ceremony to this day. He turns his phone off, he spends it with his family, because he spent a month, 12 hours on, 12 hours off with the disaster mortuary team. His only job was to identify those who were lost, and they weren't whole. The office worker who went to work that day, climbed up the elevator in the Twin Towers, and all of a sudden, without notice, became an officer or a rescuer. Probably had no experience in rescue work, but had to help rescue other people. And even the streets and sanitation workers who worked so hard to open those roads back up and rebuild the city of New York. We all have stories like that. I urge you, find somebody, talk to somebody. But there's other numbers. 341. As of today, 341 firefighters who have lost their life to cancer as a result of their duties and their actions after the towers collapsed. That is almost as many firefighters who lost their life on that day. 241 police officers who have lost their lives due to complications from their rescue activities on that day. They might have gone home that night to their families, but they're no longer with us today. Never forget. So take a minute, thank a cop, thank a firefighter, thank a soldier sometime this week. Especially our soldiers. We don't wake up thinking they're going to go to battle, but yet they get that calling. You don't know what they've seen, you don't know what they've done. Take a minute like I did back in May of 2001 and talk to a soldier and learn what they've been through. You'll learn a lot. You see, we don't take this job to be a hero. We do it to help people who need help. Just ask any firefighter or police officer how they feel about being given an award. And I promise you, they're not going to say they enjoy the recognition. We take this job because we want to help people. And when we give the ultimate sacrifice, there's this thing called the bell ceremony. For a firefighter funeral, a bell is what was used way before radios and technology. And we maintain that tradition. We never forget where we came from. And we ring the bell. The bell tolls a number of times. That signals the firefighter is home. It is their last call. They're in quarters. Their job complete. Their duties are done. And in that bell ceremony, we talk about this is a calling. That's what this job is, a calling. Whether it be a soldier, a firefighter, or a police officer. Over 680 firefighters and 300 police officers certainly didn't show up 22 years ago expecting to be thrust into making life or death decisions. They just showed up to do their job, and they did it well. They saved countless lives that we will never remember, will probably never be spoken of. But there are people walking this earth today or had more time with their family members prior to today because of the heroism of our firefighters, our police officers, and simply just some business office workers. The same goes for our soldiers and employees at the Pentagon. The safest place in the world, you would think, insulated, security, like you wouldn't believe. I believe my father-in-law tried to park in the Pentagon parking lot. It didn't turn out so well. They came out and told him to park somewhere else. And yet, they were thrust into having to be a hero that day. So let's make sure that we take time today, that we reflect on what it truly means to never forget and always remember the sacrifices not only the firefighters, police officers, and soldiers made, but so many countless others. And all it takes is you starting a conversation with somebody. So let's give a moment of silence for our fallen brothers and sisters as we remember and we memorialize September 11th, 2001, 22 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you again, Chief, for those really impactful words. Can we give him another round of applause?